Hey y'all, No here. Well, if you're a regular attender on this channel, you already know that I have spent over 2 years now trying to perfect and build a backpacking pack without any shoulder straps. And if you're a regular attender, you know that initially I tried to build the whole backpack from scratch and was kind of successful, but not completely successful. And the main problem I had was that I didn't have a sewing machine, and sewing a backpack together is a lot harder than it looks like. So you can watch those old videos where I failed terribly if you like. I recommend don't even pay any attention to those. But kind of where I went from there was I gave up on sewing the fabric together to make the entire backpack and went to trying to build a frame that I could attach a backpack to that wouldn't have shoulder straps. I did a lot better with that. So if you don't count the first iteration where I was actually trying to sew the pack together itself, I basically had 4 different versions, one, improving a little bit at a time and a little bit more at a time. So the first one, though, was this version. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these because these first 3 versions are the ones that didn't work well enough. So it was just made out of PVC pipe. And the way that all of these pack frames work is that you take your shoulder straps and loop them over this top bar. And so this top bar effectively becomes your shoulders. So this one was pretty good, but a problem that I had was that I backpack in bear country usually, and so my main problem was that it was very hard to fit this bear can inside of the pack that I have, which is a Mariposa Gossamer Gear Mariposa 60. So kind of ditched this one. And then the next version I can't even show you, although you can watch the video where I said I finally got it, but later found out that I kind of didn't. So the next version that I made is actually bought a backpack frame. It was a Stansport Freighter, I believe was the name of it. Stansport is a company that makes them. And it worked out pretty well, but it was heavier than this one was. It was made out of aluminum, but it was still heavier than this PVC frame that I built. And still had the difficulty of I just couldn't keep the bear canister secure in the pack. It wanted to lean over and stuff like that. So next version was kind of a quantum leap from those first 2. And so the next version looks something like this. And the thing that was changed drastically with this version was this here. And so the eureka moment I had was Well, if I can't get this to ride well inside my backpack, let's just not even put it in the backpack. So that's where we came to this. And so this is just made out of PVC pipe. And you may not be able to recognize it from there, but this is actually just some aluminum that I salvaged from an old lawn chair. You know, the kind that they used to sell a long time ago. They had that plastic crisscross webbing for the seat in the back. So that's what I made all this out of. But it weighed 2.8 pounds, which was even heavier than this one, which weighed 1.85 pounds. And what made this one weigh so much more was this big thick piece of plastic that I had to use to hold these two upright pieces together. And so I guess you would call, let's see, 1, 2, this would be version 3. There was actually a version 3.1 where I replaced this big thick piece of plastic with a piece of 1/8 inch thick aluminum plate, and that took a good bit of the weight out, but I thought I could still do better because a lot of the weight came from these PVC pieces down here and this piece too that added a lot of weight to the pack. So that brings us to the current version, and I don't think I'm going to do any better than this. And it looks something like this. And this almost looks like it's store-bought. So what this is 1/2 inch outside diameter aluminum tubing. The wall thickness is 0.05 inches thick. And so I just bent this tubing into this shape. This is actually 2 pieces of tubing. And so this version only weighs 1 pound. And that is, I think, as good as I'll ever get the weight. And it's nice and strong too. So this one I'm going to actually disassemble for you and show you just how it goes together. And a side benefit of this particular frame is that if you're traveling and, you know, especially if you're going to be flying, you can disassemble this frame pretty quickly if you're not on camera and trying to do it quickly. So just take that screw out there. That screw out there. And then for where I put the 2 pieces of tubing together, I just took a piece of PEX tubing, and you don't even have to put any screws in it because if you make it long enough, it's not going to pull apart. But, so, if I'm going on a trip and especially in my van, because I travel in a van that I live in, you know, I can disassemble this thing, and you know, it's going to take up almost no space whatsoever. And that's really a big plus, because how many backpacks do you know of that you can take apart and put inside of a suitcase? But this would easily fit in a large size suitcase pretty easily. All right, so the thing you're going to have is a waist belt that is not part of your backpack. And so the waist belt I chose to use was actually this waist belt here that came off of the Stansport Freighter backpack. And so what you do, okay, so I've got 8 holes in this piece of aluminum, and so all I'm going to do is just bolt this belt to the piece of aluminum plate, and that's what's going to secure it to the whole frame. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my waist belt bolted on to the piece of aluminum plate. So just 2 things left to do now. So the next step is to put on the chest straps that are going to wrap around me like this. And you can refer to previous videos to find out what that's all about. So I'm just going to slip this one on. And same way on this side. Okay, so that's going to swing around in that direction. Right, and then next we're going to slip these 2 halves back together again. Okay, that's got it. And then I'm going to put the 2 screws back in here that I took out a minute ago. Now I always use stainless steel screws and lock washers. That way you don't have to worry about corrosion, and if you use lock washers you don't have to worry about getting a loose screw or a nut falling off, and that could be a problem if you're out in the middle of nowhere and your pack starts falling apart. But you could almost keep going if you lost a screw in this part. But if you lost a screw in the uprights, that could be a problem. That might even be an incentive to carry a spare screw and lock nut just in case, because they don't weigh that much. All right, so that's got that on. And so just to try it on without the pack attached yet. So it's going to be something like this. Okay. I thought I had put it on upside down, but I just had a twist in it. And then this part goes across here. This part goes across here. Holds it nice and snug. No shoulder straps. But next I'm going to actually put the backpack and the bear canister on the frame so you can see how the whole finished thing is going to look. And of course, obviously, if you're not going to be carrying a bear canister or not one like this, you know, you don't have to put these curved pieces. You just come straight out at a 90-degree bend instead of making this one if you're not going to be carrying a bear canister. All right, so we get the pack and we'll put it on the frame, and that should be the whole thing. Okay, so this is kind of how it's going to end up looking. So I've got shoulder strap here, shoulder strap here, and then of course the part that's going to thread into here is down here. And so you're going to pull that through. But before you do that, so just to lay it out the way that it's going to be facing. Okay, so here's the back of the backpack. And then we've got strap here and strap here that is going to go over, or actually will end up this way. It's a lot easier when you're not doing it on a camera. Okay, so this part right here, you're going to thread up behind the aluminum plate. And naturally you have to loosen the screws a little bit to go up through there. And evidently a little bit more than I have. There we go. Okay, that's not pushing too well, so I'm going to get a butter knife to use to push that up through there. Okay, so not a sharp knife, just a regular old butter knife. And so what I'm going to do is just take the knife and see if I can't push it up through there. Almost. All right, so now we're underneath it. And I put a couple of pieces of vinyl tubing. I just slit the tubing lengthways and kind of put it over the edges of this plate to make sure you don't get any abrasion on your shoulder strap. Okay, and then after that, all you have to do is just loop it through your cincher. Okay, so we're just going to tighten that up until you get the shoulder straps about where they would ride on your shoulders, but this nice piece of aluminum tubing is going to substitute for your shoulders. So something like that. Obviously, you repeat the process on the other side. Tighten up all the screws and lock nuts, and you should be ready to go. Oh, and then let's see how the air canister snaps in. Right, so we're just going to put it up like that. Kind of roll it like that, and you're in. And where I like to set mine ideally is so that the bottom of my pack, the weight of my pack is going to be resting on this barrel canister, because that helps to lower your center of gravity on your pack. Now, what I didn't show you anything about is how to bend this tubing. There's lots of videos out there on YouTube. You can buy tools to bend tubing with. But what I did, which is a pretty cheap way to do it, is I just filled my tubing up with sand. You duct tape each one end and then pour sand down into the tubing until you got sand the full length of the tubing. Tape up the other end, and then just go to town bending. And I had pretty good success doing it that way. These 90-degree bends especially, I got a very smooth bend without any crinkles or creasing in the aluminum tubing. And it worked really well for me, but you can research that yourself and you know, choose the way that you think you're most comfortable doing. I actually bought 3 pieces of this aluminum tubing, kind of assuming that I was going to mess up the first one. And it wasn't perfect on the first one, but it was good enough. And so I ended up with a piece of 4-foot tubing left, and that's what I used for my pack frame. Obviously, you're going to have to adjust the length of the tubing you use according to how tall you are, how long your torso is. But 4 feet worked for me, and I'm 5'11". But yeah, that's about it. So if anybody out there decides to actually do this, leave me a comment and let me know how it did for you. So as always, thank you for watching. I hope this helped you out some, and maybe will show you the beauty of a backpack with none of those shoulder straps to wear your shoulders out. So thanks again. God bless you, each and every one, for watching, and vaya con Dios.